Hi everyone, this is Meredith Root, and welcome to the Afternoon Snack Podcast, brought to you by Tactic Nutrition.
Hi, I'm Alex Parker, owner of Tactic Nutrition, former lawyer, CrossFit Games athlete, turned health and fitness geek.
I'm also into health and nutrition, a more recent CrossFit Games athlete, co-owner of Tactic Nutrition, and former engineer. We are here to have fun, engaging conversation about some of our favorite topics, including nutrition, health, coaching, motivation, and of course, CrossFit.
Our goal is to give you something to think and talk about and hopefully make you laugh along the way.
Alex, you're not even paying attention. We're recording.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Who are you texting?
Oh, one of my clients. She's asking about whether it's actually important to have like protein and carbs within like the 15-30 minute window after your workout.
And
I'm telling her it is important, but it's not the most important thing. Like if you can do it most of the time, then do it, because your body in that window of time is primed to absorb those nutrients. So if you can get them in, you might as well.
yeah.
But yeah, she was just asking that question, so I was answering it for her.
That's a good one to like answer on the podcast.
I said, "What did I say to you? Don't you dare question me again. Eat your vegetables."
But not right after your workout. It's too close for fiber.
It's exactly. I actually have this like special font I use for texting that like,
It's so when people read your text messages, they read it in that voice.
yeah, or I put the little like mad emoji.
With like the pursed lips. It's like very like what's that movie with the wire coat hangers? I said no wire coat hangers. Mommy Dearest. That's the movie. Which like I guarantee you like most of the people in our generation probably don't know what that movie is.
Yeah, I remember you were making fun of me because you're like that woman from that movie. I was like, what movie? And you told me, and then I was like, well, show me the clip, and you did. I was like, I need to work on my anger problems.
It's a crazy clip. So it's like,
wire.
I said no wire coat hangers. It's crazy though. That movie is so scary. It's like it's I don't know, maybe like in the 60s, early 70s. No, it had to be older than that because it's filmed in black and white. Anyways, it's called Mommy Dearest. Go look up, like all you have to do is Google Mommy Dearest coat hanger scene, and you'll kind of get an impression of the way that Alex used to be when literally anything at all did not go.
That was when I worked at the law firm that I didn't enjoy working at.
Yeah.
Not the law firm's fault. That was just not a good fit for me, as everybody knows.
From a career choice standpoint.
Did you ever watch Malcolm in the Middle?
Well, yeah, of course.
You know the mom Lois?
Yes.
How she was like kind of crazy?
Yes.
So my sister and I used to call my mom Lois.
To her face?
Yeah. And like, she can't really deny it because we were crazy back then. Like my dad and my mom both worked full time. They were lawyers. And my sister and I were literally in every single sport or extracurricular activity that existed. And so you can imagine. And like one of those sports is ski racing, where you're going to the mountains every single weekend.
Yeah, that's like a 2-hour there, 2-hour back commitment.
So it was a lot. And like my mom, you know, she always had like, I don't know how she did it, like home cooked meals every night. Like she was just, all of that came at the expense of her mental health for several years there. But
there are a lot of people that can.
So I do come by it naturally, I guess you could say. She's great now. She's super relaxed.
Super. I remember when we were packing to move here, and we were packing up the gym, and like we had started packing. I think we left ourselves maybe like 3 or 4 days, which is pretty reasonable for, you know, 2 people that don't have a lot of stuff. We were packing the gym up. I don't remember why you were so frantic, but you were just like, for absolutely no reason, just like out of your mind frantic. And then you did something with the rower slide and like the seat slammed.
Oh man, that was loud.
And I was like, Alex, like you have got to calm down. It was like, for some reason you were trying to...
I think in that moment, that was the only time I ever responded to, you've got to calm down with, you're right.
Okay. It's like you're gonna break something. You were trying to carry up like multiple items at the same time. I'm like, we're not moving right now. You can just take the things up one at a time. Yeah, that was
We all have
something
our
else.
downfalls.
One of your other downfalls is making assumptions about my character based on information and stories that you fabricate in your head. Like
What?
Like the other day when you were like, you know, what did you say about the tomatoes? You tell that story.
That was one of those things that happened and we're like, we have to tell this on the podcast.
Yeah, because
Okay, I'm like, we're sitting outside and we had just had lunch and I cleaned up and I see like, so I do all the grocery shopping lists. Like I keep tabs on rations and things like that. So like if something's running low, Meredith doesn't realize until she's completely out. She doesn't have that thing in her brain that says, I only have one left. I should get more.
I do.
So I keep tabs on that stuff.
You see, this is part of the story that you make up about me.
No,
like,
stop. I'm
Okay.
telling the story.
Okay.
Just let me tell it.
okay.
So I come inside to like wash my plate and I see this empty tomato container, like the baby tomatoes. And I know Meredith had tomatoes with lunch, but I didn't see how many she had. I wasn't paying attention. So I see the empty tomato container and we had just been to the store the previous day and bought all these vegetables. And I'm like, she ate all the tomatoes in one meal. Like these tomatoes are supposed to last us a few days, like to put on salads or whatever. So I come outside and I'm not even mad. I'm just like, you know what I love about you? Which is code for, you know what drives me effing crazy? I was like, that you would eat all of the tomatoes on the first day when you know we're not going back to the grocery store for another few days.
And then I said, do you want to know what I love about you? It's that you didn't realize that the tomato container was not resealable. So I just put the tomatoes in a fucking baggie and put them in the fridge. I did not eat all the tomatoes and I would not eat all the tomatoes. I was offended. I was like, I can't believe you thought I would just like eat all of our tomatoes that we bought for the whole week. Like, yeah, you know what? I'm just going to make myself this random tomato salad.
Okay, I'm one of those people that I eat the same thing every day. And like if I run out, it's a problem. Like I don't want to eat something else. Like I have oatmeal and I like a specific brand of oatmeal and I eat the same amount every day and I make sure I never run out of oats. I always have a fresh bag. Like I always have 2 bags in the cupboard. So it was obviously quite stressful when we were quarantined because my mom was delivering us groceries. And so it was like every day I was like, okay, can you put this on the list? We're running low on this. And Meredith tends to eat a lot and she doesn't, like I said, keep track of things. So one thing we got were these Jolly Rancher gummies.
No, they're lifesavers.
Sorry, Lifesaver gummies. And she was eating them like 10 at a time.
I was not eating them 10 at a time.
Knowing that like we weren't going to be able to get more until my mom did another grocery run. So like what was going to happen was if I didn't say, hey, those are for both of us, then I go into the cupboard and I see there's none. Or, you know what I would actually see is the empty package in the cupboard.
I would never take the last one. For example, there's a bag of peanut M&Ms that are down there right now, and there's one peanut M&M in the bag, and I'm not going to eat it.
Thank you.
Because I am not, that would be not polite of me. But, yeah, I mean, my whole process is like sometimes I do run out of things and then I'm just out of them for a couple of days. And then when I go to the store, I get them. And then, yeah, that's okay. That's how I would live my life. I wouldn't run out of things like eggs or, I mean, I might.
You would.
But then I'd just make something else. I would just eat your sausage.
One time this was a test. And I usually tell Meredith what we're having for dinner that night or for the week. And one day I was kind of fed up or something and I didn't even like get mad. I was like, you know what? I'm just not going to plan dinner tonight. I'm just not going to do it. And I think I like dropped her off for a haircut at like 4. I'm like, all right, I'll pick you up in a couple hours. And she was like, okay. And then dinner. What are we having for dinner? And I was like, I don't know. You tell me. And I think that was when you realized that you actually don't.
But now also every time you ask me a question, I feel like it's a test. So you've also made me.
It is.
Yeah.
It is a test.
What's my pass fail rate on your tests?
Oh, you're not even close to passing.
You must really like me then.
You have other good qualities.
I guess so. But you never just like show up with pancakes. Like some days I'll walk down to the kitchen for breakfast and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna make pancakes. You never do that.
No, never.
I mean, that's
I have
like
to have my oatmeal.
maybe a one in like every 10 days I do that. Like I'm not eating different stuff I mean, my breakfast is basically the same always. But then like I'll just get a wild hair and I'm like, you know what? Blueberry pancakes. Let's go. Let's do pancakes with M&Ms. I'm going to do that tomorrow. No? Okay. I think it'd be good. All right. Anyways, we will get on with it. The purpose of this episode is to talk about Pride Month. It's June the 7th. We're in the first week of Pride Month. And, whether you're gay, straight, bi, trans, whatever, everybody's probably fairly familiar with the concept of Pride at this point. Kind of wanted to talk about what it means to us when we were first exposed to it. So what was your first exposure to Pride?
I went to Pride in 2016. Yeah, it was 2016. What was the year? Yeah, 2016 was a really hard year at regionals, right?
2016. Yeah, that was the year that
with the
everybody's
pistols and
back
pull-ups.
broke.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It was 2016, and I had just broken up with like kind of one of the first girls that I was dating, and she was super into like the Pride scene. Well, not really super into it, but she was kind of like, she had a lot of friends and just. So I went down to the parade, but I didn't have anybody to go with really because I didn't know anybody. And obviously the girl that I was dating, we weren't dating anymore. So I brought my friend, who's like a childhood friend of mine that I didn't even like. I think I came out to her that day. I was like, I need a friend to come with me to Pride because I'm gay. Like, and so she did. And then I hooked up with that girl. Not hooked up, but
You hooked up with a girl at
no,
Pride?
I met up with that girl that I was
Okay.
dating as friends,
I mean, that's not what I heard.
and she introduced me to a bunch of other people from Calgary, and I just ended up hanging out with them, and like we went out and partied, and it was super fun.
Yeah.
No, that my timeline's wrong, but anyways, that's the gist of it.
Yeah.
It was about a year after I had it was probably about 6 months after I'd come out. And it wasn't like it was a very like PG parade.
Yeah. Like a lot of them tend to be.
There was a lot of families. It was a lot of just like, I don't know. It was fine. It was fun. It was a good experience. And then we went out to the gay bar, and that was really fun. But it was very like benign, I guess. Like it was
Vanilla.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was my first exposure. What was yours?
Honestly, like I hadn't really heard of it when I was younger. Like, did you know about it before you went?
No.
You didn't know what it was?
Oh, I don't recall. Especially when I was younger, I definitely didn't.
Yeah. Well, I definitely didn't. Like, and even now, Pride in the South is not really a thing. Like, I can't even remember if, like, I'm sure that Raleigh has a parade of some sort, but it was not big. And I bet there's a lot of cities in the South that don't have them at all. So yeah, for me, like a lot of what where I learned about gay culture and what it means to be gay and all that stuff, I learned it while I was watching The L Word. And
I had watched the L Word before, so yeah, I was very familiar.
Yeah.
But like, I felt like that was like not real.
I know. I like I was like, oh, that would be nice.
Yeah. Like I didn't realize like that was a thing.
Yeah. And like Dinah Shore.
Yeah. Like I was like, I don't know.
Yeah. So I like that was 2015, 2016 time frame before I was out and I was still married to a man.
Mm-hmm.
So I would watch the L Word while he would play golf. And that was my
secret.
That was my indoctrination to the gay community. But yeah, and then that was kind of it. I guess I knew, like I had some friends like Meg, I had seen her post about Pride. I had like kind of just like vaguely, like I had connections, and it's like you'd see them doing things with like rainbow flags, and I'm like, okay, I don't know what that is. It wasn't really until we went in 2017 to Toronto Pride.
Mm-hmm.
That was my first experience with Pride, and like what a first experience that was.
Yeah.
Because Toronto they hosted the year before. There's always a World Pride Festival, and so it's been in New York City and it's been in London, and then the year before we went, it was in Toronto. So I feel like a lot of the infrastructure was still there from that, and then Toronto has this huge like sort of gay neighborhood where it's just, you can really like feel it. And that was wild. Just like the number of people, like the sheer mass of it alone, like it could have been a parade for anything and it would have felt massive, but it was a pride parade, and you saw kind of all kinds of people there. And that was kind of when I was like, I need to learn more about what this is about, because clearly what I thought it is not that.
Yeah. That was an eye opener, but it was a really like, it wasn't, I wasn't necessarily surprised. I was just like,
it feels like a safe space.
It was really cool to see all of these different kinds of people being who they are that you don't normally see in the world, but like they're obviously in the world.
Yeah.
But it's like they're, to take a phrase from this podcast that we recently listened to, they're on their best behavior. And then you see them in this environment and they're just who they are. Yeah. And they're wearing what they want to wear, or they aren't wearing anything at all. Like there were naked people and I was like, oh wow.
Yeah, like no, like completely nude. Just like,
but you don't see that in Calgary parade. That's like,
yeah,
that wouldn't be allowed.
Kind of a bigger.
But you go to Toronto and it's like, okay, everyone's just cool with it. Everyone's cool with whoever you are.
Yeah. And so then like, that's kind of when I started like reading and researching the history of it. And then, so, okay, then in 2019, yeah, I remember this distinctly. And this was after I had read about it, but 2019 was the, let's see, the 50-year anniversary. Is that right? 50. Yeah. The 50-year anniversary of the Stonewall riots. And that was where Pride began. So Stonewall riots were in 1969, and that was in New York. And it was kind of at the height of like gay discrimination, and like it was criminal. Like gay sexual acts were criminal back then. And so they had arrested all these people, and the Stonewall riots were in response to like police brutality at that time, specifically against gay and transgendered individuals in Manhattan and in Greenwich Village. And so that was, and I remember that was a big deal in 2019 because they did a whole like celebration of that, and kind of just like that's when you started hearing a lot about the like kind of the history of Pride in mainstream media. So yeah, and so this I wanted to do a podcast on this just to kind of talk about Pride and like our experience with it. But then we listened to one, like NPR one the other day, where Roxane Gay, who is a like a bisexual author and kind of personality, was talking about Pride and how it's kind of morphed into this thing that it was never meant to be. And so she's framing it around like New York City and a number of other big cities around the country and in the world have banned uniformed police presence. And that ban's happening kind of specifically because of the, like, you know, where pride comes from. And it comes from the fact that there was police brutality against the gay community. And I think just everyone right now has a sort of heightened sensitivity to police presence in general. And so she basically said there is no place at Pride for police. Like she took a very hard stance on that.
Yeah, well, it was in response to a New York Times article.
An op-ed.
An op-ed that had been written saying that, you know, that isn't right. Like, that isn't right to ban.
Yeah, it was by a gay police officer who said, by you saying I can't show up in uniform is basically like putting me back in the closet. And her response to that is, it's not even close to you being back in the closet, because being a police officer is not a marginalized existence.
Yeah. And so she had that response. She had a lot of really, really interesting takes on how things have morphed. And
well, it's kind of what, like, so this whole idea, well, I wanted to do a Pride episode anyways, and then I got to thinking about this because, you know, every year, so I think I first started thinking about this when I saw Shanti Cofield post on the Movement Maestro Instagram page, and she posted a meme that said something about, like, this is the time of year where large companies and corporations like put rainbow shit all over their merchandise and expect you to buy it. If you want to support Pride, like, you can give me money, a gay, directly. And it's like, that got me thinking, and it has become this very corporate thing, you know, where like Budweiser has rainbow cans, you know, every athletic company that's out there is coming out with rainbow shoes and rainbow shirts and that kind of stuff. And people just eat it up. And it's like, I get it. Like, it's one way to show support, but at the same time, like, and I was thinking about this on the drive home, like, imagine, so I like to think about like the gay, like June being Pride Month, kind of in the same light as like Black History Month, which is February. So imagine that during Black History Month, they just decide, like, all these companies do the same shit, but with some sort of like symbol or symbolism around Black History Month. Like, there's no way that would happen. It's like they put rainbows on shit because, you know, oh, gays are happy. It's like a happy time. And like, I'm glad that, like, you know, it's being celebrated, but at the same time, like, reducing the gay community to, like, you know, you can be gay, but only if you're happy and jovial and you wear rainbows and like you're easy to take. Mm-hmm. And, you know, these companies are profiting off that narrative, which is, I think, inherently sort of harmful to the gay community, because it says, like, you can exist, but only in a very heteronormative way. Like, you can exist, but only if you don't talk about sex. You can exist, but only if you don't, like, kiss in public. Stuff like that. You know what I mean? You got that 1,000-yard stare going. So I know you got something good.
I'm just taking it in.
So it's like, you know, and then, okay, on top of that, so let's just take I remember reading a tweet, I think it was by Adam Grant a couple months ago, and he said, if you want to understand what a company's stance on diversity and inclusion is, just look at who they promote to the top of their organization. Look at who they're, like, routinely promoting. And so it's hard for me to look at a company where, if you look at the board of directors, you're going to see all white men, all straight white men, maybe a couple women, but probably predominantly, like, every major corporation, straight white men. And you're going to tell me that they give a shit about diversity and inclusion. Really, when it comes down to it, when they have historically not promoted, like, diverse human beings through the ranks in their company. And that's straight up, that's kind of the way that corporate America exists. And, yeah, it just makes me feel some kind of way. And then, like, so a couple weeks ago, we both get a DM, and this is like, it starts with a DM in our DM request, which basically says, like, I haven't bothered to follow you until this point. And clearly we don't engage with the company, but it's like this company that's like, hey, we're doing a Pride collection of our apparel. We're going to donate to charity. Would you mind, like, would you like us to send you some clothes?
To promote in order to raise money for this charity.
Which they didn't say what charity that was. So we both say, sure, yeah, it'll be fine. Like, we're happy to like kind of like shine light on any LGBTQ charity.
Yeah. Yeah.
And didn't hear anything back. And then a couple of strange things happen. So without hearing anything back, we get sent, well, here's our line of Pride stuff. Let us know what sizes and which items you would like, because there were a couple different styles. And I was looking at it and I was like, this isn't Pride. There's like one thing with like, it was mostly blue.
It looked like tie-dye.
Yeah.
But it was like dark tie. I don't know. It's fine. I don't need to describe it.
Yeah.
But it wasn't anything that would send the message of Pride. Like it
looks like
as much as like, rainbows do signify like what Meredith was talking about, like they do signify pride, and like if you're gonna do pride, do pride.
Well, there's certain like
it wasn't rainbow, it was just colorful, but not rainbow colorful. Like,
well, like the pride flag. So
it looked like those paintings where somebody just like throws paint at a canvas?
Jackson Pollock.
Okay, that's what it looked like.
Yeah.
But there was no actual rainbow colors. It was just like,
no.
There was some black, some red.
Well, like, to be nitty here, the pride flag is a recognized flag. And like flags all over the world, it has very specific colors that like all you have to do when you're getting apparel printed. It's exactly what I do every year when we get ours. Is you make sure that the colors that you have printed match exactly what's on that flag.
And like, you know what? I can judge what I think is pride and what isn't. And this was not pride.
It's like, we want to do pride, but we don't actually want to do anything.
That's what it felt like.
Yeah. So like, that was kind of awkward. And then like, so it was really late.
We don't want to we want to do pride, but we also want people who are homophobic to buy it also.
You misspoke. You said homophobic. What you should have said is you want people who are assholes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because they're not afraid of anybody.
But that's what it seemed like. It was like, okay, you're trying to play both sides here. Like,
yeah. We want this to sell across all. Republicans buy Nike too. Like that kind of thing. Like, you remember when Michael Jackson or Michael Jordan? Yeah. That's what it felt like. And so then they sent a message to me and they said like, we're going to get your stuff shipped out. We want you, like, we'll send a schedule for posting. Like, we want to feature you as an athlete. Do you think you could connect with a local videographer or photographer to come up with some content and tell your story and why like being LGBTQ is important to you? I was like, it's not important to me. It's just who I am. And like how that why that matters in the CrossFit space. And I was like, you don't even know me. Like, you don't realize how personal that question is. And like, I kind of reserve that for my personal platforms. Like it became super evident in that moment that they wanted to use me and to use you as like we need some gay people on this campaign or it's not going to work. And they were like, we'll just get anybody that we can.
But it was like, but
it started as, we want to send you.
I don't want to assume things, but it's hard not to assume that there was an ulterior motive, which you can assume from a business that actually like that has no relationships with, and I'm not saying that was like intentional or not intentional, but they clearly don't have a relationship with anybody who is gay and that like an existing athlete.
Yeah.
And so they're reaching out last minute to try to fill that spot in order to do this thing. And it just didn't feel, it felt so ingenuine. And
yeah, I was just like, well, this feels really icky all of a sudden.
Is it disingenuine or ingenuine?
Disingenuous. I don't know.
Okay. Well, I'll have to check that later. But yeah, it was, they sent me the clothes and I looked at it and I was like, you know what? No, I'm not even responding to this. I don't want, I don't want to support that. Like, they may not know better. And like, maybe I was thinking, I'm like, could I tell them like, hey, is this the Pride collection? Like, what about this is Pride? Please tell me.
This is summer tie-dye.
But then I was like, you know what? I'm not even going to bother.
Gays love summer. That's probably what they were thinking.
I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to assume things, but like, it was really hard to not assume that was a misstep by them.
Yeah.
But it's a small company. Maybe they just don't know.
They're going to learn this year.
Yeah.
Yes.
But at least they're trying.
I guess.
I don't know. Maybe.
I don't know. I feel like there are so many.
I feel like they're taking it. You know what? I'm going to say it. I feel like they're taking advantage.
Yeah.
And also the same thing, like, the whole corporate thing.
Well, it's like, I get it, right? Because we do Pride shirts every year, and I wait until June to release the shirts because I know that people will buy them in June. But like, it means something to me to do them, and it just, like, we're out all year long. We kind of like plan around like a June release of a Pride shirt, and like, it's more to us, and it's definitely more to me than just like trying to capitalize on the month. And we've done fundraising in the past, and I think there are good organizations out there. Like, you can look at who like Megan Rapinoe involves herself with. There's a lot of like big name gay athletes out there, and like, they're doing good work. But these kind of like these corporations, it just feels like,
I think the fact that they didn't say what charity it was kind of threw me off.
it's because they didn't have one picked out.
But for me, I always see these rainbows. Like, even they paint a rainbow flag on one of the crosswalks in the more popular part of downtown Calgary. And I guess I haven't really thought critically about this or been exposed to people with a little bit more knowledge of the history and a different take on it, and maybe how like older generations were actually discriminated against. Or even today, certain, like Meredith has talked in the past about how we fit that easy to digest mold. Like, 2 white females, young, is much easier to digest than some other couples or types of people. And so I see these rainbows, and I'm like, oh great. Like, people are accepting. I don't feel like I need to hide as much. But then I hear about this stuff, like, probably for the first time ever this year, and listening to that podcast, and I'm like, you know what, it is all true.
Yeah.
And as much as people are trying to be accepting and like start conversations, I don't know if there's actually conversations starting or if they're just painting rainbows on windows.
I think it's easier to paint,
putting rainbows on beer cans.
It's easier to paint rainbows than it is to have actual like meaningful conversation about like the history of Pride and like what still needs to be done, because there are people that don't even fit into like to the gay community. Like, I read this thing on Instagram the other day from a person who they were talking about, because of their job, they were forced to fit the gay woman role. And she's, they were like, well, I haven't identified as a woman in years, but because I can't be who I want to be with my career, I've had to fit into this mold, and I'm just tired of doing that. So they quit their job, and like, they're in the process of transitioning, and it's like, holy shit, like, you can't, like, you don't even, like, they can't even identify as a marginalized human being. Like, there's something even more marginalized than that. And it's like, how do they feel when they don't even feel represented at, Calgary Pride or wherever? Because like, you don't make sense to me. Like, you don't make sense to, not to me personally, but that's how they're probably viewed by, all of the families and the corporations and people who show up for, to support gays like you and me. But they don't understand a person like that. How do you explain that?
Yeah. I will say, in defense of rainbows and Pride, when I was a kid, I never knew a gay child. I didn't know any gay kids or like kids who identified as a different gender.
Yeah.
I never seen that. Like, it was like, you're a tomboy, or maybe you're even like, that was obviously more accepted than maybe a boy being more girly. That was like very much frowned upon when I grew up, like, oh, boys don't play with Barbies type thing. But now, I think it was my aunt who lives up north of Edmonton in a small like farming kind of area, Murnum ranching area. And I heard from my mom that there's a kid who's transitioning, and I'm like, and it's just like, the kids are totally accepting, which kids are. They're I don't think it's the kids.
No.
But like growing up, we never had that. So I will say, I think there's definitely more talk and acceptance in schools and even high school. Like nobody came out in not very many people came out in high school. I think I know one person who told me that they've come out in high school.
Yeah. I knew
and
a couple.
Like now it's like you see that all the time.
It's yeah.
And it's in TV shows.
Well, there's definitely been work done. There's still work to be done because there's still people and that's the thing is the people who hate us will hate us no matter what.
Yeah.
You're not going to change their mind. The most important thing is that you get those people away from decision-making positions with regards to policy and politics. Because like, for example, a couple of friends of mine just had like a baby girl yesterday. And she put up a picture of the birth certificate worksheet, which is, I guess, where the parents, you fill that out to make sure the right information goes on the birth certificate. And there was a questionnaire for the spouse, and the language was like this. It was like, how long have you been married to the biological father? Are you going to be married to the biological father in the next 30 days? Like, it was all father, father, father. There wasn't a place on the fucking form for like, they didn't use the word partner, nothing. And so she had to go to like some special administrative birth certificate, room to watch them write the fucking birth certificate to make sure that she didn't accidentally give up parental rights to her child for checking the wrong box. A box that actually she couldn't check because it doesn't even exist in the state of Texas. Like, we have to get these people out of decision-making power. And it's like, I think there's work being done, but if you don't, like, we have it, but there are people out there who are so ready and willing and they want to take it away.
Yeah. And that's Texas. Some states are obviously moving a little slower than others.
Yeah. I mean, Texas is going backwards, I think.
Yeah.
But the problem with Texas is they have the power and the ability to influence other states and even influence people here in like Alberta. And you have Ted Cruz with this crazy fucking mullet who is just ready to get into the White House and wreck shit for people like us.
Okay, no more F-bombs, please.
Okay, sorry.
We want this to be kid-friendly.
Yeah, so that, and I think like we're lucky because we don't we do have a lot of freedoms that previous generations don't. And that's one of the points that Roxanne made was she was like, I am from the older generation. I remember what it was like. Thankfully we have a generation of LGBTQ people who they didn't have to experience overt discrimination. They didn't have to fight for rights. They have rights, and they had rights before before we got to the age that, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but we are in that generation. Like, we don't have to fight for what we have, but we probably do have to fight to keep it and to get rid of Texas.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, again, I've said this before, but there are certainly moments in my life, and this is partially me, but there are definitely moments in my life where I don't want to hold your hand walking down the street. I would rather just walk beside you. Even maybe if I want to hold your hand, it's not that I don't want to hold your hand, it's that I don't want people to look at us.
Yeah.
It still attracts attention, and I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is.
But
there is still some shame. It is still like, there is a lot of negativity still out there. We don't experience it firsthand, but like, I mean, it's out there, and like, I don't want it. I don't want to feel bad. And so I'd rather just avoid the possibility, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not exactly sure what it is. People will say, like, I'm not the first to say, oh, like, I have my girlfriend or my partner. I just don't say. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not easy for me yet in all areas of my life in certain circumstances.
Well,
although like I I do know that, like, telling our coming out stories or being on Savon's podcast and talking openly about being gay, or, you know, being on Instagram and showing our life together has helped a lot of people. And I know this because people have told me this.
Yeah.
Or, you know, being even being a gay nutrition coach, I'm, you know, obviously talking to people on a daily basis, getting to know them. And we've had multiple occasions where our clients have come out to us or come out during nutrition coaching periods. And, you know, I've been either the first or second or third person that somebody has told that they're coming out, or, and I think being who we are and being open to, in some respects, about being gay shows that there is a safe space for other people to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I can be that person, because if not for some of the other people that I used to look up to who've done the same thing, who knows where I would be right now.
Yeah, it helps to see yourself reflected in others. That's
And
100%.
It's comforting, and you've got something in common, and it is safe, and you're not going to be judged. I don't know. There's this weird, like, we're kind of sidetracking here, but when you meet somebody who's also gay, it's like you instantly have this connection, because you've got this big, for something that isn't a big deal, it is a big deal. And that it instantly connects you, almost like you both have this kind of this story that you can, even if you're from totally different worlds and you came out at totally different times of your life, you've got this, like, this deep understanding of each other. It sounds so cheesy that I'm saying that, but it's true. It's so true. It's like if you have a breakup, everyone's been through a breakup.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, I know what you feel. It's that feeling that you can't really describe, but it's kind of like that, but more.
Yeah, I think
more unique.
I think it's, people connect that way, like with trauma. Not that, I mean, coming out probably is traumatic for a lot of people, and that's really, that sucks. But
I mean, I think it's scary.
Yeah, it is. And it's definitely scary if you have people in your life who, you know, you're like, will not support you. And I've heard that a lot, which is, that's probably where, like, some of the trauma comes from. And even, like, you get yourself really worked up about it, and, like, you know, and I know, but it's like, I guess last week they were doing a bit on the Today Show, and they had a quote from Lance Bass, who, if you're not a child of the 2000s, he was in NSYNC, and he came out as gay, and he said something, I can't remember the quote, I just tried to find it, but he said something to the effect of, you just have to tell one person. And as soon as you tell that one person, it's like everything after that gets so much easier. Which is probably more true for others, or for some than others, but I think it does.
Well, yeah, I guess I can't speak for others, but for me, that was 100% true.
Yeah.
It's like, you just need to say the words out loud to one person, and then it's like I can't even explain it.
It's like
it's just like you become a different person instantly.
So Candace Wagner, who's a games athlete from like 2016 and a few years prior era, she posted something that caught my eye the other day on her personal Instagram, and it was like a picture of a friend, and I think it was just like a happy birthday post, but it's, you know, she was writing, and she said, this person is I told her, you know, while I was married to a man, or shortly after separating, that, like, you know, I think I'm gay. And, you know, the friend, without missing a step, was like, oh, everyone knows you're gay except you. And it's like, I had a couple of those experiences when I was coming out to people. It's like, oh yeah, no, we knew that. You just didn't know that, or you hadn't come to terms with it. And it does, like, as soon as you start sharing that information with people, not only do I think there's like most people, if they know you, there's an immense happiness, because I think they realize how much happier you're going to be. Because I was really angry for a long time. We've talked about that. I just had like anger issues. I didn't even understand where they came from, but they were like, not to the point of violence or anything like that, but I would get so mad at like every little thing. And just with people and with myself, and I would just have bad days, like really bad days. And it was like, that all stopped.
Yeah.
That all stopped. And yeah, I just thought that was really kind of powerful. And you put that out into the world, and even Candace putting that out made me feel better. I was like, oh my God, I have that same story. And it's like, because as normal as you want to feel about it, and this is my story, and it's the truth, and I can live with that. And it still helps when you hear someone that went through the same thing, because you're like, yeah, you get it, you get me, like you understand exactly what I went through, because you went through the exact same thing, and in the exact same way. Like, you understand all the shame that comes with ending a marriage because you're gay. You understand like what it feels like to have to not only like break up with this person, but all of these family members who, became your family. Like, those people are gone from your life now. It's like ripping a Band-Aid off, and it's painful, and it's hard, and it's difficult to describe and to understand. But when you feel like, even though I don't know her, I feel like understood by her.
You know what? I have a really good, I was like imagining this in my head. Coming out is like having this like, so you have this like wound on your hand or your arm. It's like always been there.
Is it oozing?
It's festering.
Okay.
It's like you got a big bandage over it, and you can't ever take the bandage off. But the bandage
has got like, it's starting to get yellow.
Yeah, it's like something is festering, and it hurts, and it always like irritating you, and it's always there. But like you can't look under the Band-Aid because it's like you don't want to show anybody because you've left it for so long, like unattended. It's like embarrassing at this point.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, I need to take care of this, and you rip the Band-Aid off. And then you can finally treat. You show someone.
Or you rip it off and there's nothing there.
No, well, that wasn't where I was going. Okay. But eventually it heals.
Yeah.
But there's always going to be like a little scar there. It's like, it never really goes away. It's like part of you.
Yeah.
I was just, that image came to mind.
I like visuals.
Me too.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of how it felt. Like, it was like, it doesn't get easy the first time you do it. It's almost like you're so vulnerable. It's like you've got this like wound that's festering and it's like out, and it could get like, bacteria in it, but it's like you just keep treating it with like really good stuff, and like you get all the support, and then it just like it heals.
Yeah.
And that's how coming out felt.
Yeah. And we get to continue coming out for the rest of our life.
Yeah. I remember we were out at like a little birthday gathering last summer. It was a socially distanced one for a friend's birthday, and we were all of us were gay. It was all there was a few couples, and at one point we were talking about having kids, which I've actually never talked about with anybody besides like really you and then a couple of my clients. The actual like process of it, and the fact that it's like it's so expensive that some people can't even afford to do it. Like, there was a couple at that barbecue, and they were like, we can't have kids.
Yeah.
We don't have money to have kids. Like, do you know how expensive it is to have a kid? Like, it was literally with their jobs, they were like, we can't.
Yeah.
And that was sad, but it was also like eye-opening in that I had never really, no one had, it was just, it's kind of just like, oh, are you guys going to have kids? But
yeah,
like,
when someone asks, like,
it's not rude to ask if you have kids. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just like, it's a thing like, oh, you don't really think of that.
Yeah, it's like you're asking if we want to have kids. Like, basically, do you have $30,000 that you can, that's expendable?
And, I mean, obviously, straight people can have to go through that process as well.
Sometimes, yeah.
But it's not the main point of discussion, I don't think.
Yeah.
When it is with us, it's like, okay, this is going to be a pretty significant process. And even talking about like, somebody's mom said, well, why don't you use your brother's sperm? And she was like, no. I mean, some people do that, some people don't, but it's like, there's all these different elements that I hadn't really even thought about until I was in this conversation.
Well, even in the US, in a lot of places, if you go to an IVF clinic as a straight couple, your insurance company will cover quite a bit, not quite a bit, it's still very expensive, but they'll cover some things under diagnostic. But same-sex couples don't get that. because it's all elective. And so you pretty much just write off like any amount of insurance that you might be able to get as a straight person, coverage for IVF, completely off the table.
That sucks.
So again, that's one of those little things.
But I think it's important, like going back to the whole celebrating pride, like it's not just about, being accepting of somebody holding hands with another girl. It goes way beyond that. It goes, and like I said, like we have it pretty easy given that we are who we are. We're easy to digest. People can somewhat make sense of us. There needs to be so much more.
Yeah. And so there's
still a long way to go.
The end of the discussion, I think, is what is pride actually for? Who is it for? And like the thing that's happening right now is that pride has become this kind of like, it's corporate America, it's white straight America, and it's saying we accept you and you should accept that we accept you. And like that's kind of what they're pushing for, and that's where, like Roxanne says, you see all these gays who button themselves up for pride and they want to be on their best behavior because they don't want to lose the ground that has been gained. But in reality, like you don't want to just put yourself in this like heteronormative box. Like that's not what we're going for.
Like the
here.
Will and Grace effect.
Yeah, that was a good term. Yeah.
And that made a lot of sense. And that's what you see on TV.
Yeah.
You don't see like,
well, even like, and we talked about this.
You don't see what she said, like kink. You don't see that on TV.
No, but that's a big part of the culture.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's like as soon as the population becomes overly sexualized and, you start talking about sex and, it becomes quote unquote distasteful, that's where you start losing the support and understanding of the heterosexual community, because that community says, well, I come to pride with my children. And it's like, that's wonderful. Like, I'm glad that you're exposing your children to, this community, but pride is not for your children. Mm-hmm. So like, you just have to understand, if you bring your kids to something like that, especially in a place like Toronto, New York, San Francisco, like, yeah, you're going to expose your child to some things that maybe like you would want to think twice about. Like, it's not just like, you're not just going to a colorful, happy parade. Like, this means something. And it's because the sexual act of homosexuality was criminalized and punished for years. And like, if you take the sex out of homosexuality, what is the point? Mm-hmm. Like, we want you guys to, yes, you can live and exist together. You can share a home. You can have children. You can be on the same mortgage. You can go see each other in the hospital when you're sick, but you cannot have sex. You can't talk about sex. You can't do any of that. We don't want to see it, hear it. We don't want to think about it. But that is ingrained in the culture and in pride. You can't take it away. And you shouldn't. And we shouldn't feel like we have to. So I thought that was a really good point. And it's like, pride needs to remain like, it was born from violence. And like, people need to know that. Remember it. Mm-hmm. It came from hate. Like, good, like, happy pride's a thing. I'm glad it's a thing, but like, never forget. Yeah. I thought that was a pretty powerful take on it at the end. And I think pride is for the gay community. It is for the LGBTQ community and allies, and it needs to remain that way.
I agree. I didn't actually think I would agree, but then I did.
Yeah, you hear it and you're like, yeah, that's 100%.
I didn't, like I've said this on the podcast, this podcast specifically, but this last week has been eye-opening hearing that and talking to you and having these conversations, because I do see a rainbow and I'm like, oh, good.
I feel better.
I do. But now I'm kind of like, ugh. a little,
Yeah.
you know, I'm
It
like,
just,
do you really care?
I consider the context.
It just made you, it's a good conversation to have. I'm not going to like go into a bank and be like, you have a rainbow painted on your thing. Like, how many of your employees right now are, you know,
Yeah.
but at the same time, it's definitely
Well, and like
food for thought.
I'll continue to support businesses that do that. I'll continue to buy like shoes and apparel that is pride themed, because at the minimum, like a person like me wearing that in public, like visibility matters. And if it means that I have to have a pair of you know, mass produced big box brand athletic shoes that have rainbows on them, I'll do that. Because
do you think anybody who's homophobic is mad that the rainbow is signifies the LGBTQ community?
Oh, I'm sure. Like, oh, you stole the rainbow.
Yeah. I was just thinking that because I'm like, so I remember seeing at my old job, somebody had a watch with one of the, like, it was the Apple Watch, and you can get different straps for it. And it had a rainbow watch. And I was like, I wonder if she's gay.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think she was. But it made me think, I was like, well, is she an ally? Or it's like, maybe she just likes rainbows.
Yeah.
And that made me think.
I'm sure. But like homophobic people, they're just mad about everything.
Yeah.
It could be. We could pick.
Maybe they're mad because they're gay.
That's a whole psychology, you know. Yep. Like it's suppressed sexuality.
Well, it's like you always see on TV shows, like the bully ends up being gay.
Yeah. I mean, but that's actually a real thing.
Can we talk for a minute at the end? This is at the end. About Colton from Bachelor.
Yeah.
That was amazing. I'm sorry, but coming out is hard enough. Coming out when you're a public figure who's been on, of all shows, The Bachelor.
Where you're just like, it's all about.
And no. And like, I'm not going to say he lied, but he had this whole thing.
He played up the like, I'm saving myself for marriage because I'm very Christian.
Yeah.
And he might be. I'm not going to say that he isn't.
But that was like
a very convenient narrative for him to have.
Yeah. Like, I'm not saying it was wrong or right. I'm just saying like he was really living this other life and like fooling people. And it wasn't malicious. It was just the way it was. But to have to not only say like you're gay, but have to say like, yeah, and I went on this $1 billion TV show or however much money, I don't know, with this many viewers, and it was all fake.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you're in the position where you're like, yeah, I was married to you and I knew I was gay.
Mm-hmm.
That, but like, and obviously that's a pretty significant thing too. But like, wow. And like, just to have to take the pub, like, so many people know you, and there's so many more opportunities for homophobic people or people who aren't accepting or who can't understand why he put himself in that position to
he's going to see,
talk
like,
so negatively.
He's going to see like the like girls' parents who live in like Alabama. Like, how oppressive is that?
Yeah.
I want to know, like,
I was so happy to hear that he did that, because I'm like, not happy to hear that somebody else is gay, but somebody who's gay and came out under that in that situation. I'm just, wow. So happy
I want to know,
for him.
like, so he's on a set of a major TV show. There's just staff everywhere. There's stylists, there's makeup. Like, you can guarantee that there are gay men who work for The Bachelor in some, like, whether they're doing hair and makeup, whether they're doing producing, whether they're, you know, doing whatever. I want to know if they're like, okay, honey. Like, do you think it was just like gaydar off?
I don't know. I don't really know how gaydar works, because I'm like, I have none, but
yeah, I mean, it's bad. I've screwed that up a few embarrassing times.
But sometimes I think some people, they're so far in the closet and so in, I guess, denial.
Yeah.
That maybe you just don't even think. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. But then what flips it? Like, how do you get past that to move? I don't know.
I think it all comes to a head.
You just get to a point where you're like, I can't live like this.
Yeah, exactly.
But wow, that was that. Yeah, I just needed to talk about that because that was crazy.
Yeah, I was happy to see that. And he seemed so happy. I mean, I don't know him, but it'd be cool if I did know him.
I did watch his season.
Yeah, and he just
and
seems
I follow
more,
him on Instagram.
His Instagram.
And I liked how he deleted all of his previous Instagram posts. And I'm like, that's symbolic of he's rewriting. He's a new person.
It's like a rebirth.
And it's
on
like
the internet.
he probably felt like he was living a lie, and he was done with that.
Yeah.
And so now he's starting afresh.
I wonder if they invited him on Bachelor in Paradise and he was just like, I can't. I can't do that. Yeah. I was happy about that. I mean, I'm always happy when people come out.
I'm proud, I guess, because it's like,
yeah, it's not like I'm happy like we're gaining numbers.
Well,
like
I mean that too.
We're gonna take over the world. Our powerful little 10% of the population.
Is that still the case? 10%?
I don't know. I heard that a long time ago.
Me too.
It seems maybe. I mean, except in CrossFit, and then I think you're looking at probably closer to like 20% of females, anyways.
Yeah.
That's a whole. We'll leave that discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I guess with all that feedback about Pride and who it's for, like, damn, I'm glad it happens. I'm glad that it exists, and in any form, and I know it matters for people, and it matters for visibility, and I've talked to people who are who are doing a much better job at raising their children in like non-gender conforming ways, and I love that. I think it's just the best. I wish I had been. It's no fault of my parents. I was born at a different time and a different place, but
remember when there was that whole, I mean, it still is a thing, but it was like big a year ago. The Black Lives Matter movement was like, there was the protesting, and you felt and I think social media obviously played a pretty big part in this. I personally felt like you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
Yeah.
It was like you couldn't say anything without it being criticized, but you also couldn't not say anything because that would be criticized.
Well,
and I would try to do something that I felt was what was right, and to show that I was educating myself or aware. And it was like, oh, you can't do the black square. And I was like, oh my God, okay, that was a mistake. Okay, now you can't do this. Oh, you posted this. That's not okay either.
Oh, you used the wrong hashtags.
Yeah, and I was like, I don't want people to think that's the message we're sending out today.
Oh, hell no.
It was like, yeah, you should be accepting, but don't use a rainbow. It's like, that's not what we're saying. We're just
use the rainbow. I love seeing the rainbow. Mm-hmm. I love seeing that out there because it makes me feel better.
Yeah, we're just looking at some different views, and
it's more about like the Pride is not for the straight community. It isn't.
Yeah.
It isn't to make them feel better about being allies. It isn't for them. It's for us. And that's all that's all it is.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, it isn't. And it doesn't mean that you can't be an ally. It doesn't mean you can't be a straight person and support it and go to Pride parades and have a great time and be there with your friends. You just have to put that in the context of what it's for, who it's for, and where it came from.
I agree.
Yep. So, any closing thoughts? Alex?
I think I've said everything that I need to say.
Yeah, this is a good one. If you haven't checked out our Pride shirts, I think we've sold maybe about half of them, so grab one if you're gonna. And we appreciate it, and we appreciate the support year round. We're Pride 365 in these parts, and I think that I'll always be that way.
I just heard Ivy.
Is she okay?
She said
Ivy?
She just said rainbows suck. I don't know.
We're gonna have to have a
Sometimes
talk.
she just says things.
Yeah. So, thanks for listening as always, and we'll talk to you guys again soon.